All right. Well,
Woo!
back.
Back.
I think, yeah, my computer was feeling really hot and I was wondering if that might happen, but we're there. I don't know exactly where it cut out, but I can edit it together perfectly. Sorry about that.
Okay.
The joy of not having
No,
a home.
I can't tell you how many times things have happened to me like this, so it's zero worry.
Hello and welcome to the Free Outside Show from the heart of Montana. Just bumming around finding rooms to record in. But today we have an awesome show. We have Alyssa Clark. We talk Lavaredo. She finished second to Courtney Dauwalter, so nothing to shake a finger at there. And we really get into all the aspects. So she's kind of built a team around her, from like a mental coach and nutritionist and a true running coach, and how they all work together and the future of the sport. We also talk about the role of an agent and how things are progressing and how there needs to be more development for younger athletes in the sport. So it's a fun one. Tune in. This episode and all of them are brought to you by Janji, Janji. Use code FREEOUTSIDE. You get, I think it's 10 or a million% off, somewhere in between. Give it a go. I use their shorts. They're awesome. They have sun hoodies that are also great. Visor gang over here as I get into my old age. And also Garage Ground Gear, garagegroundgear.com, marketplace for small businesses. I just got an ultralight quilt there. I got a couple headlamps for the Appalachian Trail record attempt. And then CS Coffee, csinstant.coffee. It is premium freeze-dried instant coffee. Life update. So I'm headed out to the East Coast in a few days, about 4 days from when you listen to this. I'll be training out there. So I gave up my place. Everything I own is in storage. There's a time when you have to decide to go all in on your goals. And we've hit that time. So I am without address for now. And so for the next 2 months, it'll be training and then going after the Appalachian Trail record. And once it's over, hopefully there is a soft spot for me to land, because I have nothing lined up after I give this record attempt my all. So that's a little about me. That's our sponsors. If you want to support the show or me in general, patreon.com/freeoutside. That always helps. Or subscribe on Substack. Follow us on YouTube. Even if you watch there, I get some money. We're monetized. And shop at our sponsors. That always helps. All right. I'm Jeff Garmeyer. Let's start this episode with Alyssa Clark. All right, back on the Free Outside podcast, we are joined by reoccurring guest Alyssa Clark here, fresh off Lavaredo. So what is Lavaredo? Because I think it gets overshadowed by Western states here in America.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun because it is a super competitive European race, but it kind of hides under the shadow of Western. So there's less pressure around it, but it's also really, really fun. Yeah, it's like Mont Blanc Marathon, Lavaredo, and Western. It's like the stacked weekend of the year. But Lavaredo, man, it has a bunch of different distances, but kind of they call like the queen distance is the 120K, which is about 75 miles, about 19,000 feet of vert, and it's in the Italian Dolomites, which are absolutely stunning. They're just the most unique, I think, set of mountain range, or the most unique mountain range I've ever seen. And yeah, it starts at 11 p.m. So it's a very classic European night race start. And it's epic. It's a lot of really runnable parts mixed with, some big friggin' climbs. So it's fun.
I love the night start too. I wish more US races did that. It's so fun and just throws like a curveball to everyone running it too.
It really does. And what's so funny is that, I mean, the town is Cortina d'Ampezzo, which is actually where the Olympics are going to be this year, or in 2026. So it's Milan and Cortina. It's this beautiful mountain town, and the whole city, well, it's like a mountain town. The whole town just comes alive, and everyone's out in the balconies like drinking wine and cheering, and they've just like, I mean, it's just packed with people. And so the whole place just gets super into it. And there's something really magical about the 11 p.m. start of kind of like heading off into the night. And logistically, it poses a lot of really interesting challenges to manage. But yeah, it's very European to do night races, and I think it adds a special twist to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Let's see, what was it called? The Grand Traverse in Colorado from Crested Butte to Aspen on
Oh,
skis,
nice.
and that has a midnight start, and it's the same vibe of starting at Crested Butte. People are taking shots, and then
Yeah.
they like shoot off a gun, and you're off at midnight. So it's pretty fun. But how do you manage the day of the race if with an 11 p.m. start? How do you even figure that out?
Yeah, so that is such a great question. It's taken a few years of kind of managing it to get better at it. So one of the things that we did pre-race is I did a later night run. So I started at like 9 p.m. or something to practice what I was going to eat before the
Hmm.
race because you kind of have this odd amount of time of making sure you're not going to eat something that messes your stomach up, but also making sure you get enough because it is like you don't want to go into it depleted. So uh, the day before, I slept in as long as I could. I think I was able to sleep till like 10 a.m. And then kind of just made sure everything was ready, ate as much as I kind of could, as was reasonable, hung out with a friend, and then laid down for a few hours at like 3, 4 o'clock, watched the clock both move very quickly and very slowly at the same time. And then my friend came over. I ate at like 5 p.m. I ate at 10 a.m., like 1 p.m., 5 p.m., and I think it was like 8:30, 8:30.
Okay. Yeah.
The last meal was kind of like just banana, peanut butter, toast, and some honey. And then my friend came over. We hung out and played Jenga until like
Nice.
9:45 because it was awesome. She was crewing me and she was just like, "Yeah, I want to keep you company and otherwise you just
Yeah.
kind of go crazy." So we were just playing Jenga. I kind of forgot I was going to race, which was nice. I was like, "Oh, I'm just playing Jenga with my friend." And then yeah, warmed up starting around 10, got to the start, kept practice some box breathing so I didn't uh
Hmm.
hyperventilate with blaring music and crowds screaming at you at 11 p.m. and went off on our merry way.
Yeah. And I think buried the lead. So you lined up and Courtney Dauwalter's there. How does it feel to have like the goat around? Is that incite more nerves going into it? Or is that kind of leave the pressure off of like, this is a cool opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the second. First off, she is a freaking awesome person. Like, I'd actually
Nicest
never.
person.
She's so nice. I'd never met her and I never raced against her before. So I saw her at bib pickup and was just like, "Hey, my name's Alyssa," and shocking to me, she knew who I was. And we chat a little bit. She hadn't seen any of the course, so I was telling her just a little bit about the course and like, yeah, said good luck. But she literally gets stopped every second to have a picture taken with her. I do not know how she does it and maintains such a positive, kind, uh, demeanor to everyone. I like it's insane. So yeah, so much credit to her. She's so cool. And then, yeah, fist bumped her at the start. And then she waited for me to finish and gave me a big hug and like congrats. And we chatted for a little bit at the end. So, yeah, hopefully she follows me on Instagram now. So, not gonna lie, that was a big special moment. Hopefully we can be friends at some point or build the friendship. But, it was one of those things where I was stoked because I'd never gotten to race her before. And it took a lot of pressure off because, I mean, no one expects anyone else to beat Courtney. So for me, it was just like, well, I'm going to try to chase and just keep doing my best. And I tend to do my best when the eyes are not on me, when they're on someone else. And I've always kind of run as the underdog. It's just the way I tend to run my best. And so that suited me a lot better than having the pressure of am I gonna win or not? It was like, well, I'm probably not. Like, there's a
You think
very
you were the underdog, you think, against Courtney? Come on.
I know, we're shocked. Um, But yeah, I think because it was just like, I have nothing to lose, like
Yeah.
nothing to lose. So I might as well just keep trying my best to keep up with her, keep her within, I was within like 20
Hmm.
to 30 minutes of her most of the race. And so I just kept being like, yeah, just keep trying my best to close the gap if I can.
Yeah, that's super fun. Does that influence your race plan or your style out there? Or do you go in with kind of your own set splits and idea of things, or do you let yourself race to that level?
Yeah, so I went in trying to shoot for as close to 14-ish as possible. So I had a time goal that was kind of like what my nutrition was based off of. That's traditionally 14 has like very decisively placed first or second if you run that time. So I was basing off of that, but then my game plan actually was to be very calm for the first marathon of just like, I'm not racing. I'm just kind of like moving and not going to get stressed. I'm not going to peg my heart rate because when I go out really hard and I try to throw down right from the start, I jack my heart rate up, my legs hurt,
Hmm.
like, shocking
Yeah,
that
the
that
classic
could
9 hours in, you're like throwing
yeah.
up. Yeah, it's
Yeah, exactly. So I went in being like, I told my crew, I was like, I could very well be in like eighth, ninth, 10th female. Don't worry. That's the plan. We're keeping it calm. That's not what it ended up happening. My coach was like, wow, you actually went out harder than we thought. I was like, I truly mentally was like, I'm just keeping it relaxed. It's just that I felt good, so I was moving pretty well. Um, but yeah, it wasn't until maybe 30, over 50K in that I was like, okay, let's start racing a bit
yeah.
more.
And does it help in the night too to feel a little bit calmer? I love the night portion of races,
I do
so
too. Yeah, because you're so much removed from like trying to catch a glimpse of someone where it's like,
Mhm.
oh, are they behind me? Are they in front of me? You can just be in that moment and also like see the night creatures and hear the noises. And yeah, I like it too. And also, I feel like there's always times in night where I'm like, I'm going so fast. I'm so fast. Like your perception of speed is very different. And then you look down at your watch, I'm like, I'm not going that fast, but I feel great.
Yeah, it's like the tunnel vision of you're just focused on this beam of light in front of you and the whole world doesn't matter outside of it. It's a fun feeling.
It is. Yeah. Do you hike a lot at night or mostly
Well, not
day
this
or
time of
like
year
all of
since
it?
we have like 18 hours of daylight here in
True.
Montana. But yeah, it's my favorite time to do stuff. Unfortunately, my weaknesses are in the heat of the day, so most of like building up weaknesses has to take place then. But yeah, every single race, like 100 miler plus, it's just like get to the evening portion and everything gets easier. Yeah, even a couple weeks ago in a race, it was just like, wow, some people just crumble in the dark. I feel like I get my energy from the moon. Actually, I have a tattoo of the moon on my arm. That's how much I love it.
That's it, man. It must like suck it into your moon tattoo.
Yeah, I think that's it. I put a stick figure running on the moon. So very, very high
There you
level
go.
tattoo there.
I mean, my first tattoo is a stick finger runner with 100. So
There you go.
yeah,
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 perfect.
yeah.
So is your coach John Fitzgerald, by the way?
He is. He had a good weekend.
Yeah, so I know I asked him what I should ask you, so we got some like behind the scenes stuff. So we're gonna just go through a little bit of it, and I want to kind of focus and hit on to the team you put around you. So I just want to start with that because it's really cool to see athletes really investing beyond the traditional coach, but you have a number of other people as part of your high performance team, right?
I do. Yeah. And I remember we talked about this in the podcast where I was kind of like just seeing how it was. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's fun to revisit it a few months later.
Yeah. So, yeah, do you want to just list off the different roles and then we'll dive into a few different ones after that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I should say my husband, he would probably be mad at me if I didn't include him, but
Did you
yeah,
start coaching him, by the way?
I did.
Yeah. Wild. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, we live in a van, and I think the coaching is going to be the true test of our relationship. So,
Big time. Yeah. It's
yeah,
like, so, you have a run today. When are you going to do that?
yeah. Well, um, we'll see. He thinks of himself as my coach still, and I'm like, meh. He gets so annoyed because I have, my 3 coaches now, and he's like, I tell you this every day. You don't listen to me. Why
Yeah.
we're paying people? I'm like, yeah, because they're smart. I mean, you're smart too, but like, yeah,
When you pay people, you listen a lot
you
better.
pay. Yeah, exactly. So yes, him and then the cats, definitely part of the team. But
Hmm.
I have John as the head running coach, and then Meredith Terranova is my nutritionist. She's Katie's nutritionist, helped her with everything last year, the Western and UTMB,
Yeah.
um, and quite a few other like great athletes. And then I have Tim Van Orden, who is my like mental performance coach at this point. And then Kelly is my agent. So
Nice. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a power team there. So what, like maybe between agent, mental coach and dietitian or nutritionist, how which of those has been like the most surprising as far as like the benefits that you're getting? Is there one that stands out that's really alleviated some of your own stress and anxiety?
I think all of them have contributed in different ways. So, for example, I mean, Meredith literally, I give her what I think my splits are, and I get back my entire nutrition plan for the race, which is so nice. Like, I
Yeah.
don't have to do anything. And she's like so dialed of exactly what I need, the temperature, the rate, like the race course. It's so cool not to have to do that. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing. How has it built up while we're kind of on her? Is it when you started, were you experimenting with things and then you found like I don't know, whether you're working in carbs or whatever per hour and different things, and she spits that back to you? Has it been a trial and error period?
Yeah, so when we first started, we had several conversations. I was tracking how I was feeling during long runs. She would be tweaking through. Like I would fill out a Google spreadsheet of like
Mhm.
answering questions. She'd be tweaking. We'd be playing with different carbs per hour. I mean, that's mostly what we're doing. And then we kind of hit a sweet spot of like, okay, this works. Um, based on what we're noticing. She also checks in on my protein because I'm
Mhm.
not the best at getting protein and being vegetarian. And so yeah, so it was trial and error to start, mostly off long runs or faster efforts, and then we were dialing that in, and then she'll adjust of like, okay, it's supposed to be really hot, we're gonna lean on liquid calories versus, hey, it's gonna be cooler, we're gonna lean on gels. Um, and then
Okay.
yeah, she writes everything of like what my crew needs out for me and yeah, all those pieces. So it's been just really nice. I trust her so much with that. And yeah, it's working.
So yeah, I have a question I have to ask. If you get to an aid station and you're like, oh my gosh, I really want a handful of chips, are you allowed to have that?
Oh, yeah, of course. I just literally have never, in probably the last 3 to 5 years, not thought that. So.
That's fair. I mean, sometimes there's like weird stuff. Mostly I only get it at Cocodona at mile like
Well, yeah.
200.
Yeah, coconut is like a free for all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I think I want a piece of bread instead of this precision gel I'm supposed to eat, so let's do that.
Yes. No, I think 200s are a whole wild west of getting to eat what you want versus yeah, my crew member Eleonora, who is from Cortina, she's become a really, we met her when we lived over there, and she just like couldn't get over the fact that I didn't eat anything solid. She was like, why are you not like eating food or anything? And then afterwards I was like, yeah, my stomach, it never feels that great after I finish a race. I continued the tradition of puking after a race, so we're good. Safe, the tradition.
Yeah, keep it
After,
rolling.
yeah, after literally every race I have thrown up. And and she's just like, well, yeah, maybe because you haven't eaten real food in like 20 hours. It's like, this is very normal for me.
Yeah, you're like, well, the results speak for themselves,
Well,
so we're gonna keep it rolling.
yeah, but it was just so funny. She was totally on board, but was just like, I don't get it. I don't get how you do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the nutrition piece. The the mental piece, honestly, I mean, Tim has been an absolute game changer in how I talk to myself, how I approach the race. I mean, he would actually be an awesome person to, if you ever wanted him on the podcast. He leads with compassion. His
Hmm.
whole premise is being compassionate to ourselves. And, can you be competitive and also love yourself and be thankful and grateful and like have joy, rather than tear yourself down and beat yourself up? And so, yeah, the answer is, I think, yes, very much so.
That's an incredible lesson and style to lean into too.
Yeah, yeah. And it's made such a difference because we talk a lot about separating the identity that's formed when you're a kid, generally from bad experiences,
Hmm.
and how that identity will scream at you that you suck, that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve or shouldn't belong there. And how that is just, he calls it a sheep. And so there's like sheep in your brain. And like, that's just one sheep. And then there's a lot of other sheeps that are super helpful and nice to you and
Hmm.
deserving. And so we talk a lot about like stepping outside of identity and just letting the training do the job. It's like, yeah, we work really hard to be able to do this. And if we just quiet our brains and allow our bodies to do the thing that they're meant to do, we can do a lot. And so um, we've just worked on a ton of strategies. He's the one who's, this is what winning feels like. And uh, just so many parts of it. And just, yeah, being kind to yourself and how that is most important.
Totally.
Um,
And I want to
yeah.
key in on the one thing you said too about like different sheep, and just in now like 5 years of therapy, that's been the biggest game changer for me, is just accepting and that there's so many parts of you. So it like can validate that, yeah, there's this competitive or like part of you that is mean to yourself, but there's all these other parts, and that's just one tiny piece, and you don't have to focus on that one all the time too.
And they're not always right. Actually, sometimes they're
Totally.
mean assholes who are incorrect. Like,
Yeah.
don't trust them.
Yeah. Especially if there's like 1,000 other parts and sheep out there that are way nicer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had a tough I was very sick as a kid, and then I went from being really competitive in sports, got really sick, and then would come in last in races, and so kind of um really had my identity as like this athletic person who wins shaken a lot as like a 14-year-old.
Wow.
And so the part of me that like came in last in races and hurts still,
Hmm.
instead of like, she gets really loud when things aren't going well and tells me that I'm not good enough, that I am still her. And so when I was running, I actually ran into someone that I went to high school with, and he was like, which, yeah, like high school was kind of the roughest part of it because I went to a ski academy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this maybe wasn't the time to like run into someone I went to high school with all these memories. And I literally remember, like, as I was getting into an aid station, I had this thinking about that, and I went, I'm going to protect her. Like, I'm going to protect her. I'm not going to, um, be mean to her or think that like that I can't have her be a part of me, because that was such an origin story of what I got into running. And
Hmm.
so Tim really helps me to hold all of those pieces, because if we suppress them, then they just come out later and are like, ha,
Yeah.
you thought you forgot about me? I'm
They're
back.
explosive. Yeah.
Yeah, they're exploding. They come out and you're like, shoot. So yeah, he's just taught me a lot about holding all of those spaces and being able to step out of um, narratives and all of that, and just get out of my own way is kind of the big thing.
Yeah, what are strategies that you use in a race when there's so much going on and you don't have the ability to take like a few minute reset? Are there quick things that you've worked on in training that aid that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, one of the funny ones, I'll just say this and I'll get into like more specific ones, is that I have this tradition of getting my hair done when I go overseas because A, it's way less expensive, and B, it makes me sit for like a few hours during taper period. And so
Yeah.
it's not very pink right now because I need to re-dye it, but I had pink hair. And so whenever I was like, oh, this is kind of hard, I'd go, but I got pink hair and that's fun. And I just like
That's
start
so good.
laughing in the race, being like, I have pink hair.
Yeah. That's why
So,
I used to wear a tiger sweatshirt too. It was like, well, this is
yes,
really hard or I'm lonely, but it's like, but I'm also dressed like a tiger. So that's hilarious.
yes, I think it's those thought disrupting, the pattern disrupting thoughts that allow you. So yeah, pink hair. I had to stop to pee in my warm up and I saw a frog and I was like, that's a cool frog. And so then during the race, I like saw a frog and a few other frogs. And I was like, oh, it's a frog. Like, it's just those kind of small things where it's things that can make you land in the moment rather than projecting or obsessing over what happened. So going into the race, a few of my strategies that we've been working on are staying in the moment. So that's like, oh, I have pink hair, frog.
Yeah.
I will audibly say to myself if I find, maybe I'm thinking about the finish line or I'm thinking about, a future moment, or like, oh, I didn't run that downhill as well. Oh, who's behind me? I'll say, stop, be here,
Hmm.
like out loud. And that helps disrupt that pattern of projecting or ruminating. So that's one. And then uh one of the phrases I was saying is this my best? Like asking myself that continuously, like, is this the best I can do? Is this what I can give? If it was
Hmm.
yes, keep going. If it was no, start running.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, start pushing yourself. And I think just that honesty, it's not that it has to be negative. It's just being
Hmm.
honest with yourself. And so my goal was to say yes, like as much as I could. Can I run this? Yes. Can I move a little bit faster? Can I drink this? Can I eat this? Just saying yes to those opportunities. I love the this is what winning feels like that we
Yep.
talked about in the hurt one.
Yep.
And yeah, just I think like being really present and also just allowing things to like not reacting, but just being able to separate. So something happens, instead of immediately being like, there goes my race, or I'm throwing up, oh, I can't do this. Like being able to live in that moment in between the action and the reaction, and then decide how you will act. Like that
Okay.
has been really huge, is just like maybe it's a second or 5 seconds being like, oh no, I'm going to act that way. Like I'm going to choose my next move versus I'm going to be a victim of past behaviors or patterns or um like what's happening to me.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
almost like
crazy.
you're, yeah, it's almost like removing yourself for a few seconds to be less biased and make a rational decision versus like a snap judgment.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's so many moments during the race where I found myself being like, "Oh, I'm going to do that." I used to do that. I could do that. But no, I'm actually going to actively choose to do this instead. I'm going to think about pink hair. I'm going to think about a frog. I'm going to relax as opposed to, and
Yeah.
then I'm going to push here. I'm going to drink something. And that, yeah,
Do you
is a
practice that in
control piece.
training too? Is it like things you can incorporate so that it's second nature?
Yeah, actually, one of the workouts that I love and has been, I think, one of the moments where I've been able to is I'll do an aerobic threshold workout of 90 minutes on the treadmill. So warm up for 15, and then it's 90 minutes of just
Oof.
riding the edge of
Yeah.
zone 2 and zone 3. And it's a long time to be kind of like
Super long.
very moderately, like very uncomfortable with no break. And so that mentally has been where I have found a lot of opportunity to practice that kind of discomfort choice. And also with the treadmill is you can go like I find that if I'm really on my mental game, my heart rate allows me to keep pushing faster and faster as well. So yeah, I can really knock it down a fair amount. But yes, that's been one of those workouts that has, I think, been pretty instrumental in the mental piece of like, you could just suffer and hate your life for 90 minutes, or you can choose to practice those tools.
Whew, that is a brutal workout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. John pushes hard for sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think because he had Jeff McGavro was coached by him too. So yeah, good
Yeah.
weekend.
He's Jeff. Yeah. Yeah. It was awesome. I chatted with him today, and I was like, Coach, you should be proud that like that's on you a lot. Like you have been so instrumental. Yeah, for Jeff and I both.
Yeah. And so after an event like Lavaredo, big result. I mean, didn't quite get Courtney, but got raced a really good, awesome race to second. What is the do you debrief both with the mental side and then also with John as well? And like with a team like this, how do you take the information that you learned and apply it to the future?
Yeah, great question. So I spent almost 2 hours this morning chatting with both of them, John first, and then Tim, and then actually Kelly as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll talk to Meredith on Monday, and then we'll have a team meeting within the next couple of weeks to kind of game plan before UTMB. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's always things to work on. I have some notes that we can change and modify and practice. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's super cool. Do they meet and chat and share things without your involvement too?
they do. Yeah, to some extent, not like all of them
Mm-hmm.
together as much, but John and Tim chat a lot, and then John and Meredith will chat. Meredith and Tim don't know each other quite as well, but yeah. So John's kind of like the captain, and then
Yeah.
he kind of distributes and chats, and yeah. So they all talk together, and then John and Kelly are also good friends.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think that this is the direction that the highest performers in the sport are going to be going? And kind of we talked before on it makes it harder to break in if there is such a team around people. How do you kind of feel about that?
Yeah, I do think it is. I think if you look, I mean, let's be real, we're all like 10 to 15 years off cycling. So,
Hmm.
yeah, cycling
Yeah,
has teams. So,
totally.
10 years later, we're going to have
Yeah.
teams. Um, I do think it's the evolution. I think that the racing is becoming too fast and dialed to not have those people in your corner. I think there's always going to be exceptions. There's always going to be a few people out there that are able to get a long ways on their own. Um, but I think it also I think what keeps that spark of the old school ultra alive is the fact that everyone can stand in a start line and it is not predetermined who is going to win no matter what background you come from. Like there could always be the surprise of someone unsponsored, doesn't have a coach where like they can win. And that's 100% possible. And that's the fun part. So I do think that's the direction it's going, but I do hope that we keep the spirit of that excitement and uncertainty alive.
Yeah. Here, how I kind of think about it is you can have all these people in your corner and maybe some people don't, but there's so much information that if you know where to look and are willing to put the time in, as someone unsponsored like Will Murray is one of my favorite examples of, he's
John
very
coaches him now, though.
oh yeah, yeah. But I mean, like
Yeah.
going into Black Canyon, it was like very methodical and he had like very good reasoning and,
His
very
mental
backed
game
and
was, yeah. His like
totally. So,
mantras. Yeah.
I think that there is definitely a gap from like the top end of the sport to the up and comer or the new person. But I think that in this age, there is so much ability to glean insight. And I don't know, everyone is also so nice that you can probably get or validate some of your thinkings by reaching out too. So I don't think all hope is lost for someone breaking in. It just makes it a bit of an uphill climb too.
It does. Yeah. I mean, that's what, to go back to kind of, yeah, breaking in of, oh, this was actually before we started recording, that we were talking about how it's a bit of a chicken and the egg thing with, you get faster and so you get free entries, you
Hmm.
get to stand at the start of, you're not 500 people back, you're not getting choked on a uphill, you're up in the front, you get all your race kit, you get help with traveling, you get to get out there 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 6 weeks ahead and practice on the course and do training camps and heat training and all of this, and how it's, yeah, it's like the better you do, the more support you get to keep doing better. But breaking into the point at which you're getting that, it's a real uphill battle, and kind of like playing with the resources to, yeah, get to that point. So it's tough, it's tricky, and I think as we're seeing more money come into the sport, it definitely, I think, is creating a little bit more of a gap in that regard.
Yeah, I think so too. So let's fix it right now. How do we create more of like a developmental, like, especially with, I mean, college athletics is a mess and sports are getting cut. And whether across, I mean, I know you came from sports as well, but across the board, people are coming from everything from soccer to cross country to field hockey to winter sports. But how do we create more
Blacksboro.
of, yeah. How do we create more of a developmental side of it? Any ideas here?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I would love to do. I think that we've seen a few examples of it. The North Face had that development team. I mean, Helen, Faulkner came
Hmm.
off of that. I think Seth
Seth
Ruling.
Ruling did.
Yeah,
Michelino was on there, I believe. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that we saw that actually be really successful. The trail team, I believe is it's called.
Rod Farvard was also on that, by the way.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, what the heck? Why are we doing this? Um, yeah, I think that there is a tremendous opportunity that brands have to build development teams for younger generations of runners. And I think that we really need to lean into mentorship in the sport of, like, I've kind of been begging for a while. I love mentoring athletes and helping as much as I can, because there is so much to learn about, like, the business side of it, how to conduct, like, there's so many parts. And so I think that having not only a development team by the company, but also asking the athletes who are a little bit further along in their careers to be mentors. Maybe that's written into our contract, that's an option. Like, I think that's a huge part of helping younger athletes come up in the sport is those development programs. And I think that a lot of people would be more open to it if it was more prevalent. But I also think that ultra running has a little bit of a problem that we tend to throw away our elders. I think that in other sports, we see them a lot more revered. They're the team captains. They're, respected and still compensated and lauded for what they can bring to future generations, even if they're not on the hardest climbs or skiing the biggest descents. Like, their knowledge and wisdom of years in the sport to pass on to younger generations is just as much a part. I mean, I think of Conrad Anker, Hillary Nielsen, unfortunately, before she passed away, are amazing examples, Jimmy Chin. And I think in ultra running, I see so many athletes that are in their 50s and 60s being like, what about us? Like, we were forgotten. And we don't, I think, respect the history as much as we could and ask those athletes, like, yeah, teach me what you know. Like, how did you manage off a Cliff Bar and a plastic Gatorade bottle? Because that's insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's so much that we can learn uh, about how to conduct ourselves and how to be great athletes and ambassadors from the generations that, quite frankly, I just don't think we give enough credit to.
Yeah, there's so much disrespect in this space of
Yes.
like, well, those times are slow or something. It's like, well, look at the technology too that's been used. I mean, every course record has gone down in the past 5 years or so, that it's just crazy that we judge backwards versus other sports where it's more like, okay, the team won a championship or they won this award or something. And in this, it's so weird that we do comparisons across the board on times when they're basically running in like Converse back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something I wish too, that there was a space not only for the younger up and comers, but to learn from the elders and the wisdom of our sport. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like what Kraft is doing with Tommy Rivs too. Like he'll come out and cook for the athletes at a race,
Oh,
and he'll
cool.
be like lightly a part of it. Like they can obviously have their own crew and pacers, but he's like there and part of it. And you could do that with, a number of people from the older generation because there's so much wisdom too. And it's also, I think our generation is so bad at valuing experience because our whole lives we were looking up to older people and being like, they got so much benefit if things were cheaper and could buy a house. But I think that experience is invaluable. And even if there were more of these elder statesmen kind of plugged into different teams and things, I think it would just
Totally.
offer even a better environment if there's like a team house in Tahoe or in Phoenix or something, that there's just a way that it should be incorporated. And I think On does uh, a pretty good job of having an athlete as team manager, or the athlete manager. But I think a lot of brands, I don't understand why some people are different team managers without getting specific of like, we should plug in people who know exactly the highs and lows and stresses of the people that they're managing, just like you would in a normal job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, gosh, the business side of things is a whole other conversation. And I think a lot of it is growing pains
Mm-hmm.
where, I mean, gosh, even like a few years ago, who would have thought that we would have the professionalization and the monetary backing that we do right now, the number of new companies that are coming up and making waves. And so I think there's like this a little bit of a rubber band effect, and I think we'll get there. I also think that there's this really interesting uh mixing of kind of more influencer type athletes and professional athletes, and they're all standing on the same start line in a way that other sports, like, that doesn't happen in a professional soccer league or the Boston Marathon, and so there's this mixing where it's like companies differentiating, like, are you an influencer, are you a professional athlete, like, because there's a lot of, because I think ultra running is still accessible enough that like you can get pretty strong results um and also be an influence. Yeah, so I think it's just like the sport navigating that space as well of, okay, do we separate these completely? Are they kind of the same? Like, do we expect our athletes to be also, creating a lot of content? Do our content creators, do we expect them to be racing at the top? It's like, yeah, I think Cocodona is where all of them just completely crash and like explode in
Oh
thunder
yeah.
booms. Yeah. The whole race, I was like, huh, wow, this is a lot.
Yeah, it's
I think
like,
we see,
whoa, Mark Zuckerberg's sister's running this. Okay.
yeah, she seems awesome though. Like every
Yeah.
podcast, I think she just seems like a freaking rock star. But it
And
is
yeah, I
really,
love both sides. It's just like
yeah,
crazy where they collide at Cocodona.
yeah. It was literally like if I could think of one race, I'm like, oh yeah, Cocodona is just like everyone's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think the sport is finding itself in a way where we there's just not quite as much, like you don't have someone who maybe falls into more of the bucket of influencer winning the Boston Marathon, but you could have someone who falls in that bucket coming in top 5 of Cocodona or top 10. Like that's possible.
Yeah.
So it is, I think it's really interesting how it's going to shake out and how that is going to affect the sport.
Yeah. I think there should, I'll just throw my opinion out too. I
Yes.
think it's just really interesting because it is like the influencer that can be for somewhat competitive too, but they want their main gig to be, maybe it's YouTube or something like that. And then there's the pro athlete who feels the pressure to have more social media presence or a presence on YouTube or something too. And I think for a brand, it should be two different buckets, but say it like team camps, I think everyone should go. And that's where content lives and comes from too, is I think there's so much because we're so early on that everyone is expected to be a Swiss Army knife, and some of the tools that they have are not good. And it just should not be expected of everyone to be everything. And I think that now there is enough growth and money and things like that to highlight people's skills, whether maybe someone is great at writing and it's like maintaining a Substack fulfills social media obligations. And then 4 times a year during team camps, you can shoot reels or something with a creative who's literally paid to do that. That I think there's just a better way to present brands and athletes by pairing and accepting that influencers are going to be here forever.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I went to On had they released a shoe last year to REI exclusively. That was like the initial release, and so they brought in REI content people, On content creators, and then a few trail athletes. And it was like it was really eye-opening to me to see the work that goes into, I mean, I know everyone's like, yeah, it's really hard. It's like, yeah, it's really hard. Like I would not want to run in front of a camera 10 takes to get the shot. And like it was such a different mindset of how you're looking at the world in many ways, of like, okay, I'm looking for this shot because this is really great, versus, oh, I'm going out on my training run to like hit these intervals, and oh, if I take a selfie during my cool down, like nailed it, crushed it. Yeah. I think with brands, there kind of was this like everything everywhere all at once idea or feeling. I do think they're getting a bit or things are getting a little bit calmer, because I'm seeing athletes who maybe don't have as big of a social media following, but they're, they write or they do YouTube, are getting really nice contracts, or they're able to sustain themselves. And also, I mean, I remember a few years ago, I would get turned down all the time because I didn't have enough followers. And now that's kind of doesn't even come up. And also contracts, you're seeing like a lot less stipulations on specific posting. It's like, yeah, they don't want you to maybe be completely off the grid, but there's not like you must have 10 posts per month, and if you don't, you can get in trouble. It's like, yeah, post authentically. And there's a lot less concerned about, hey, you have to have 20,000 followers or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah. And how does it work in terms of, I'm really curious, like on the product side. So On just released a new shoe. How, and you guys, the athletes, have the most experience and probably the best opinions on that. How do you work as a team to convey and put that out there? Because I think those are the authentic things more than paying an influencer. And that's kind of the magic time where you want all the athlete pros opinions.
Yeah, I mean, so we did have some internal discussions about talking about the shoe. Like when it was released, us being able to speak to it on social media or, as we kind of saw fit for our audience. Um, it's a friggin' sick shoe, so it's kind of an easy
Yeah.
sell. People are really stoked on it. I mean, Jeff just placed fourth. I used it during Lavaredo, so uh the nice thing is it's a sick shoe, so it's easy to speak to. But yes, there is some coordination behind the scenes of kind of like, hey, this is what we'd love to see if that's possible. You feel comfortable doing it, but it's certainly not going to be like, hey, we're going to take away your contract because you didn't make this specific post. But I think, I mean, I hope if you're invested in
Hmm.
the company that you work with. I mean, I think that's in many ways like a luxury, but I do hope it's true that you're psyched on it. Anyway, like, you use the product, you want to talk about the product. And so, yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy. And I think that companies are really doing a good job of creating realistic expectations and also meeting athlete personalities
Yeah.
where they're at.
And I think On is really unique in the past year. It's felt like really organic of especially like Jeff Colt talking about how he tried out the shoe and it was really awesome that it was going to be finally coming out for everyone to use. And then you guys like release or say that you've been like Jeff's like I did this insane training block in this shoe. It's just like flowed really organically to be illustrated by actual miles and kind of testing. And I mean, no one has an insane following, but then you put together like Katie switched to On as well. It just was like really organic. And I don't think we've seen that yet from a big shoe company. So I wouldn't like give kudos if I didn't actually believe it, but it was kind of cool to see where athletes could fill in the gaps of their expertise and not have to go above and beyond of like really corny
Yeah.
posting.
Yeah. I mean, like I got the shoe. So I'm not a sample size. Some people had been trying the shoe for years, which is super cool. Like Jeff,
Yeah.
for example. I'm not a sample size, but I got it maybe 3 weeks before Desert Rats, and I put it on and I went for a run and I sent them an email. Like I guess I mean it's still a small team, so like we know the designers, we chat with them. I sent them an email. I just went, holy shit, this shoe is freaking awesome. Like, well done. Yeah. So it
That's
was,
awesome.
yeah, like it was, I love to tell people when they're doing a good job. And I was like, yeah, they need to be told they did a great job. Like, this is a cool shoe. So I think that it's both, I mean, just really good marketing and timing of like everything coming together. And also just like they made a really good product. And it's easy for us to speak to that when that's the case.
Yeah, let's normalize telling people good job more. I think people only spread bad job. So I think we need to spread that a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, that's something, I mean, I'm not always the best at it, but and Kelly's really good at this. Like we try to tell people when they're doing something really well, like
Mm-hmm.
you crushed that, or like this is a really good product, or like wow, you conduct yourself as a team manager in an incredible way. Like you really listen. Like yeah, so I think totally telling people when they're doing a good job, A, it makes, I mean, selfishly it makes you feel good, and B, it's like, well yeah, they probably, I mean, we're so often told we're not doing a good job or like what we can improve upon. It's
Yeah.
kind of nice to be told you're doing well.
Yeah. I told John, your coach, and Jeff's coach that he did an awesome job this past weekend just because it was like, I got nothing involved in this, but that's pretty sick that you had top results at two of the biggest races. So I think normalizing that. All right, just one or two more topics. He said to ask you about running uphill with more confidence. How?
Yeah.
How? What happened? What changed? What has yeah, how have things more confidence changed things? How did you gain it? yeah, what can people kind of take away too if you're telling someone who's a little trepidatious about hills? What would you say?
Yeah, that's funny he said that. So when I went to him as a coach, I said, I'm really bad at running up hills. That's something I want to work on. And he was like, okay. I mean, we had just started, so he didn't really have anything to base it off of except me telling him that. And then there, to be honest, I can't exactly point to the moment, but there came a point where I was just like, oh, I can run up that. I can run up that too. Like, I can run up that. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I just kept kind of building confidence over running uphills and changing the narrative that I had very firmly told myself that I was bad at running uphills. It turns out, actually, I probably just wasn't great at running uphills straight out of a start where I jacked my heart rate up because I was freaking out. And then
Yeah.
every uphill after that felt really bad. So if you calm down and don't absolutely hammer, because the thing about running uphills is that you can run uphills at a chill effort.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you do not have to be hammering uphills. Like, during Lavaredo, I was psyched on the shoes, and I was like, I'm just gonna bounce up this hill. So in my head, I was just going bounce, 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 like just having fun running up this hill. And so I think that along with just a lot of training on hills, and also he multiple times said to me, and he was actually out at UTMB last year going up one of the last climbs. He was like, Alyssa, you're really good at climbing up hills. You were crushing up one of the last climbs of UTMB. I don't think you can tell yourself that anymore. And so I think that having his confidence in me, a lot of practice, and also I think that it really helps to go on routes that maybe you've done for years or you have experience with, and just being like, oh my gosh, I just ran up that whole entire climb, which I've never done before. Or I ran up more of it. And I think that having some kind of check-in points really helps you to realize how far you've come.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, wow. I ran up that entire thing and didn't even think about it. I just was able to do it without stressing.
Yeah. I think it's a really important thing to get to measure yourself, but also in a very controlled way so that it doesn't lead negatively if it's like a bad day too.
Yeah.
The last topic I want to hit on is something that I think a lot of people wonder but don't really know is what is the role, like especially in Kelly's case, like day to day or week to week outside of say contract season or new contracts, like what does an agent do beyond what we'd normally hear when they're like an agent for an NBA player or something like that in this space?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Kelly's exceptional.
Yeah, she's the best in the business. Yeah.
Yeah, she is. So I think that probably what she does is not necessarily the norm, we'll say. But I mean, she just cares for you as a human. And so she's just another person that's checking in on how your results are, checking in before the race and giving you a pre-race chat and making sure that you have everything you need. So I think the emotional side of things, but then also for example, I wanted a couple of headphones from Cento, and she was immediately, on it to my team manager being like, hey, can Alyssa get headphones at Lavaredo? Mm-hmm. Or it's arranging, media, or UTMB, I think she'll be out there. And so I'm sure she'll be helping make sure that I don't overschedule myself or overcommit. So yeah, it's a lot of managing the different pieces of do you have the gear that you need? Do you have the support you need? Are the companies following through on what they promised? Are they promoting you? Just kind of that interaction. Because sometimes with the athletes, and I've done a lot of it. I'm actually kind of learning the behind the scenes as well to hopefully help some athletes along the way. Is that it can be a lot easier when you're advocating for someone else than it can be when you're advocating for yourself. And it feels really personal when you have, say, a company turn you down, or when things don't quite go the way you expect. And when you have someone who's kind of in between, it just takes some of that emotional stress out of things, where you're like, yeah, it just didn't work. It just wasn't the right time. Or, like, you don't have to be told to your face no.
Totally.
Yeah, so I think that helps.
Yeah, and just to dive into one aspect, media has gotten huge in the past few years. How does that help so do you have a conversation with Kelly, say, if you're going into UTMB, about like when you're going to kind of check out of doing more media and maintain more time and stuff? Because this is the part of the sport that I think has kind of outgrown the size of the sport, where you can walk around Chamonix and see all the pro athletes still, and it's a little over the top, and the asks and obligations way outweigh sort of the other side of the compensation. If you guys were all making $10 million, I would be like, yeah, there's a huge obligation to do a lot of media. But like the ask and the return, I think that's where Kelly has sort of pioneered, I think, this approach of like, the right level of obligation is the right level, and we're going to keep it at that. How has that changed and helped?
Yeah. So, we haven't done it yet. So I don't exactly know, but I am sure that we'll have a conversation. And I know she did this for her Western States athletes, is like, yeah, Alyssa, Tara, Shay, whatever, is not going to be doing interviews on Thursday. Like, that's not going to happen before the race. If you want to have a conversation with them, if you want to meet up with them, that happens maybe on Monday or Tuesday. But like, there's going to be a firm line where we're not doing that after this date, or it's going to be coming to the house. It's not going to be, hey, you're going to show up in downtown Chamonix Thursday at 5 p.m. and do an interview. Like, we're just not going to do that. So I think just she really helps at creating safeguards where, it's just like, we're happy to meet the obligation, but it's also going to be within the parameters that you want us to succeed, right? Like, you want your athlete to perform at their best. You've got to protect that space for them as well. And I think she's just really good at navigating the obligations with protecting the mental space to perform your best.
Totally, because I think everyone came up in this sport where it was like, you have to say yes to everything because you don't know like where it's leading, or you might never get asked again. And things have changed and it's professional. So I just think that that's a really good roadmap of, it's almost like these are the times it works. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. But I got to play Jenga.
Yeah, exactly. I'm bringing Jenga to UTMB for sure.
Yeah, you got to do the exact same day leading in.
Yeah, I also won the last two games, so I was like, this is going to be a good race.
Yeah, you got to tell who you're playing against. Maybe just lightly throw the last two games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and congratulations. 75 miles with 20,000 feet of gain is insane. So pretty awesome race.
Thanks. Yeah, if you ever get the chance to do it, it's a really special area, really special race. So highly, highly recommend it. And I'm just psyched. I've been like 0 for like 4 or 5 on 100Ks in the last few years. So just like monkeys off the back.
Yeah.
Finally.
It's the hardest distance, in my opinion. I try not to do them.
I don't want to. I'm not 100% opposed to Western States, but I'm like, I don't want to race a golden ticket 100K. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, you can either do 100 degrees at Javelina or 100K somewhere else. Yeah.
There's these 100 things. Yeah. No, I think it's such a hard distance.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for entertaining our questions that span the map of trail running, but I think we solved all the problems in the space.
Yeah, boom. Hire us anytime.
Thank you for listening to the Free Outside Show. Please support Janji, Janji, Garage Room Gear, and CS Coffee. And stick around. Please subscribe, give us 5 stars, like, leave a comment. All the engagement's great. Thanks for listening. Great community we built here. Stay elite, my friends.